This is week 10 notes, finding the GCF. In this video, part 2, we're going to learn how to find the GCF of terms that have variables in them. The first example is only going to have variables in it, so let's write it down. It's going to be x cubed, y squared, z, and x, I'll write it further over here, x squared, y to the fifth, z. So how do we find the greatest common factor of these two things? Let me show you and pay very close attention. So write this right underneath, GCF equals. Okay, just so you know that we are finding the GCF, what we're going to do first is look and see which letters are in common to both of these terms. Both of them have an x, as you can see. So we're going to go down here and we're going to write x to the power of something, or x to the power of box. Why? Because x is in common. That's super important. You don't just write x because you see an x here. They have to be in, or it has to be in both. So let's ask, is y in common? Yeah. So we're going to do the same thing for y. Y to the box. And then we're going to do the same thing for z because z is in common. So we're going to go z to the box. So our GCF is going to be x to the power of something, y to the power of something, z to the power of something. What is that something? We have to look at the exponents to know. Here's the rule. Are you listening? If the number is the same, so x to the third, x to the second, it's not the same. But if it is, then that is what you would write in the box. If it's not the same, which is not in this, you're going to ask, what number is lower? It's the 2. So that is what is going to go into the box. Whatever number is lower, not higher, lower. Okay. Now we're going to go to y. What is our number 2 and 5? So these are the powers. Are they the same? No. Which one's lower? 2. So 2 is what goes in the box. All right, last one. And that's z to the 1, z to the 1. The 1's always there. We just don't write it. Are the powers the same? Yes. Then that is what goes in the box. If they weren't, take the lower one. So this is the GCF. X squared, y squared, z. And we don't need to write the 1. But that is the GCF. Moving on to number 6. Okay, our example is going to be, I kind of want to keep that last one in view a little bit. It's going to be w to the fourth, x, y, I'll probably zoom out a little bit, x, y to the third, z, and then x to the fifth, y. Same exact process as we did in the last one, and I would encourage you to pause and try it yourself. Assuming you've tried. Which letters are in common to both of these terms? Certainly w is not, but x is, so we'll underline that, and then we'll have GCF is x to the box, and then what else? Y. Y is also in common. I'm not going to use different colors in this one. You have y to the box. Why? Because it's common. What about z? Well, z is not in both, so it's not common. Now, what do we write in the box? This is x to the 1. Ask yourself, looking at 1 and 5, are they the same? No. Okay, then which one's lower? The 1. So the 1 is what goes in there. How about y? You have a 3 and you have a 1. Are they the same? No. Take the lower one, which is 1. So the GCF really is just xy out of these two terms. Next example, number 7. This is a little bit longer of a question, but 30x squared y to the third z and 36 x to the fifth y squared z w. How do we find the GCF of these things here? It seems pretty busy. Well, first we find the GCF of the numbers, 30 and 36, which we learned how to do in the last video. Then we find the GCF of the letters or the variables. And then just multiply them together and we're done. First, the numbers. Let's do this off to the side. The smaller number is 30. So if you need to do this, you can, but I'm going to do it anyway. What else? 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, 5 times 6. And then I'm going to go through all these numbers, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 15, and 30, all the factors of 30. I'm going to ask myself, what is the biggest one I can divide 36 by? Well, I can divide 36 by 1, 2, 3, not 5. I can divide 36 by 6. How about 10? No. 15? No. 30? No. So that means 6 is my GCF between 30 and, well, actually I'm not going to write GCF because that's not the full GCF. It's just the GCF of the numbers. I'm going to circle it. So we found the GCF of the numbers, that's 6. All right, now how about the GCF of the variables? Same process as the last questions. Which one's in common? X and Y and Z. Great. So X, which one is the lower, or are they the same? Well, they're not the same, so I'll take the lower one. X squared. Y. Are they the same? No, one's a 3, one's a 2. But I'm going to take the lower one then if they're not the same. So I'm going to take that one. And then z to the 1, z to the 1. Powers are the same, so I'm going to take z to the 1. And I don't need to write the 1, but just so you know it is there. And w is not in common, so I'm not going to include w in my GCF. Now all I have to do, folks, is take the GCF of the variables and then the GCF of the number right here and combine them. For my full GCF, drum roll please, that is 6x squared y squared z. Okay, hopefully that made some sense, just combining things that we already know. No, okay. Number 8, last one. I want you to try this one on your own. 23 a squared b squared c and 46 a cubed c. Find the GCF of these two things. Assuming you've tried. So maybe you're getting really good at finding the GCF of numbers, but that's the first thing we're going to do. 23 and 46. Well, you should know that you can divide 46 by 23 and you get 2. So that must mean that the GCF of the numbers is 23. Okay, so the GCF of the numbers is 23. The variables, which ones are in common? We have A and A. Don't think just because you have a 2 and a 3 here that A is not in common. A is common. So we'll go A to the something, right? And then we have B not in common, and then C is in common. So C to the 1, C to the 1. And since it's the same exponent, that is what we're going to put in the box. So C to the 1. And then A, you take the lower one, because it's not the same, a 2 and a 3. So we'll take the lower one there, and that's what goes in that box. And so just to write it out the way I would write it normally is 23a squared c. That is the greatest common factor. And we're done.